Now focus, because this video is going to be good. I'm going to be talking about booleans, what you should be doing, shouldn't be doing, and what you need to pay attention to, especially if you're a beginner, intermediate, or even advanced. There's going to be a lot of tips, practical tips, that will help you understand what the hell is going on with your mesh. And by the way, I'm still in Blender 4.4 because 5.0, does my tits in. So anyway, let me grab a cube and let's start. It's gonna be 14 different tips, yeah, so pay attention. The first tip is gonna be apply scale, and I'm gonna be using hardOps and box cutter add-on for it because, that's what intelligent people do. And let me just grab this here, the auto end panel, so I don't want it to hide because I want to show you what's happening here. So I'm going to change the scale of my object, right? You can see here on the z-axis it's shifting, so the scale isn't uniform. Now what it's going to affect is going to be stuff like, for example, bevels, right? So if I'm going to run a bevel on it, you see the bevel isn't 90 degrees, it's flat. Why? Because the scale is not applied, okay? So in order to fix it, I would need to go to Control A and apply scale, or use hardOps and box cutter, because these add-ons are gonna do this automatically for me the moment I'm starting to cut the mesh. Do you see what I mean? So that's why, that's one of million reasons why we use these add-ons, right? And by the way, if you want to learn these add-ons properly, grab our course, The Ultimate Guide to hardOps and Box Cutter 2.0, which is the best source of learning, efficiently how to use them in practice, okay? Anyway, I digest. So scale is really important. So when you're going to have this, non-uniform scale here, and you're gonna start cutting your mesh with vanilla tools, then the scale will not be applied, and this will affect bevels, solidifications, arrays, etc. It's gonna mess up your module, okay? So be careful. Number 2, all right? No bevels on cutters. So let's say I'm gonna have a bevel here. I'm gonna clone this. Now I wanna cut this mesh with this one, right? And I'm gonna be using vanilla tools again because they're just too slow. You need to go here, add modifier, go to generate, create a boolean, select this, fuck that. So I'm gonna be using, hardOps here. So shift select this one, Q, and boolean difference. Now, the problem is that if I increase the bevel here or do anything, you see my mesh breaks. Why? Because I got 2 bevels on my mesh. One comes from the cutter, which is being injected into the model, imprinted onto the model, and 2, you got the bevel from the mesh itself. So if I'm going to convert it to mesh, you will see I'm gonna have a conflict of edges here. It's a complete fucking disaster, right? And good luck fixing this, right? Even Jesus can't help you here. So what you want to do, right, is you want to remove the bevel from this cutter. Watch what happens to this mess when I'm gonna nuke this bevel, right? Boom, gone. Okay? That's really important. So never cut your mesh with a beveled boolean unless you know what the fuck you're doing, okay? So for example, if I were cutting this with hardOps, right, with box cutter, sorry, and I added a bevel here on my mesh, that's different because it's a controlled bevel just on these 2 edges. Even if you add quad bevel to it, right? So you're gonna cut this and press Q, right, B for bevel and then Q for quad bevel, you're still fine because you're controlling this bevel on specific edges, okay? It's not a global bevel, it's different. And also hardOps and box cutter know how to adjust the settings of this bevel to make it work. So it's just automatically done in the background. It's very different, right? Third tip, all right? Boolean order matters. It's really important. Not just Boolean order, but order of modifiers. That's again where the hardOps and box cutter shine, because they do it for you automatically. There is an automatic, sorting for box cutter and for hardOps, okay? So if I go to hardOps menu, you will have, I think it's under general, where is it? Where, I mean, workflow, I think. Yeah, workflow here. You got all the, modifiers sorted out. You can actually add them, remove them, whatever you want. But the point is, when you're working in vanilla Blender, the modifiers don't sort themselves. So if I, for example, added Boolean in vanilla Blender, it would be here, okay, on the bottom, under smooth by angle, under the bevel. It will not work, okay? So watch what happens when I'm gonna move my Boolean here versus here, right? Why this bevel disappears? Because first you're beveling the whole cube, and then you're cutting a chunk out of this cube with a boolean. Do you see what I mean? So order of modifiers is essential, right? If I move this above, then first I'm cutting the cube, then I'm running the bevel on all the edges, including the ones that cut in, right? Which is here. That's why it's important. The same with mirrors, okay? If I'm gonna add a mirror here, right, with hard ups, and I'm going to move the bevel underneath the mirror, it will not get mirrored because, you know, first it's been mirrored and then it's been booleaned. Do you see what I mean? So the order is essential, and that's why again we're using add-ons like hard ups and box cutter, because we're intelligent, right? And we don't like wasting time. All right, tip number 4, avoid co-planar faces. What do I mean by that? Well, if you have a boolean like this, right, which is gonna be on the same elevation in 3D space, so these gonna be kind of z fighting here. That's the co-planar situation. So when I'm gonna cut this with a regular, you know, boolean, it will not work because by default it's gonna be using a fast solver. Now in Blender 5.0 you got 2 more. You got exact and I think it's called manifold. They're kind of similar. The exact manifold, they do kind of the same thing. There's different algorithm, but they're very similar. If you switch it to exact, the algo is a bit different, and it takes into consideration the fact that you are having a cutter top face on the same, you know, plane as the object you're cutting. Okay, so these two faces on top are co-planar, same on the bottom. So it will not work with a fast solver, but it will work with this one. Okay, now when you're using these kind of co-planar cutters, be careful because you may create a shitstorm in terms of a geometry. So when you edit, especially in a more complex model, you want to edit and apply it, and after you do that, you want to go inside of your model, and I mean go inside like this, you know, just peek inside and see if you didn't fuck anything up, okay? Because you may need to do some cleanup, and if you don't, it's gonna bite you in the ass later on. Do you know what I mean? So when you stack more modifiers, when you stack more booleans, more bevels, you're gonna have a, you know, disaster in your hands. So clean as you go, right? So now another one, cutter and things you're cutting should be closed solids. So let's emulate this, right? If I'm gonna move this cutter here and nuke this face, it will work because this face doesn't really affect, you know, what I'm doing, right? But if I'm gonna nuke this face, right, or tiny bit of this face is missing, okay, then you may have a problem because, you know, your boolean will not work, okay? Or there's gonna be some error or problem or issue with your mesh, or you were gonna create a non-manifold mesh. Now if I'm gonna remove a face here, yeah, I'm gonna have a different problem. You see, it will simply not work the way I intended to work, because if I apply this now, right, so smart apply, I'm gonna get one object which is not what I wanted. I was running a difference boolean, not union boolean, and I got this. So, you know, weird stuff may happen. So be careful and check whether your object is manifold or not, okay? And the easy way to do this in Blender 5.0, if you're using Blender 5.0, is to go here and face orientation, and anything in red is flipped on non-manifold, okay? It means, you know, the red should be always facing inside of your model, okay? That's the inner side of your mesh, that's the outer side of your mesh, all right? Number 6. Avoid ultra thin cutters, especially when you're running bevels. So let's say you have a kind of generous bevel here, right? But you're gonna, you know, run here a cutter, it's gonna be extremely shallow. See, that's what's gonna happen. Your bevel is gonna overshoot because you simply don't have enough space to run the bevel on these edges, right? The bevel is super large. You will need to decrease the bevel to something really, really, really tiny, right? Or move this cutter deeper inside, okay? So be careful with that. Another one is going to be watching out for overlapping edges. This is really important. It's kind of similar. So let's say I got this here, right? And I'm cutting with a cutter which is really close to the edge. Well, what you need to understand, and you see, I have this face orientation turned on, so I can immediately see when my mesh gets fucked, right? So what you want to understand here is that Blender needs a lot of space in order to accommodate both bevels, right? So bevel on this side and on this side. And there is not enough space, not enough room for both of them. So they're colliding, they're sliding under one, you know, one another. So if I go to Q bevel and press Z for my wireframe, you see what happens? These bevels kind of slide under one another, they flip the geometry, and the geo comes from inside to outside, okay? So this is the inner bits, you know, like guts of this cube kind of sticking out, do you know what I mean? As if you gutted it with a knife, okay? That's what's happening. So if you're gonna continue modeling on this mesh, you know, you're fucked. The same here on the corner, you see that? This area is just, see here, is just too dense, right? The bevel doesn't have space. So now how do you go around it, right? With hard ups, what you can do is you can simply apply another bevel. So you go here and you go to operations and you go to step, and step's going to apply another bevel, which is going to be half the resolution of the original bevel. So if I'm going to run a cut now, this bevel here is going to be much smaller than this one. And now you got two bevels running on your mesh, okay? So if I press Q, I'm going to go to bevel. I can adjust the one on a cut. Press Q again, I can adjust the big one. Do you see what I mean? So I can control both bevels automatically, and the boolean will get sorted automatically to a correct position. If you move it, you know, things get fucked again, okay? And you can apply more of these, and this is quite tricky or annoying to do with vanilla Blender because you have to do, you know, all this setup manually. With hard ups, it's one click and you're done. So again, if you want to learn how to use hard ups and box cutter properly, then grab our course, because that's the best source of knowledge on the internet for these two add-ons. Link is in the video description. Even documentation is outdated. Next one, watch Boolean created connections. What does it mean? All right, so let's say we have a cube and we have a, you know, Boolean here. I'm gonna array this on this axis and I'm gonna run a bool here, right? And I'm gonna run a bevel here. So you see what's happening? You see these lines? These are the default connections that Blender will create for all these booleans, which, for lack of better words, are fucking retarded, okay? So what you want in this case, you want to force a connection between the boolean and the edge of the face. Each boolean needs two edges to connect to the edge of the face, right? So if I'm going to shift this cube and uniquify it, so I'm gonna have my cutters applied to it, and I'm going to apply this one, okay? You'll see what I mean. See, that's what Blender is going to create. So what you want to do, right, is you want to force a cut on this like this with a knife, and all these problems are going to disappear when I'm going to apply this, okay? See that? Because now we got clean connections, right, between them, and they're perpendicular. That's another thing. What you want, or what you want to strive for, is a perpendicular connection between the edge of the boolean, right, and the edge that connects to the edge of the face the boolean lays on. Do you see what I mean? Or the boolean is cutting through. Because corner connection is going to always create problems with booleans. Watch this, okay? You see the distortion here? You see this distortion, right? It's going to be more visible if I'm going to, you know, make this boolean bevel, sorry, larger, right? You see how uneven this edge is? It's not perpendicular, it's crooked. Why? It's because of this nonsense, right? So if I nuke this, you see, my edge is gonna get fixed. So when you are connecting booleans, always clean them up, okay? You always want to fix stuff on your mesh when you're working, even if they're live booleans, because it's gonna look cleaner and it's gonna allow you to build on top of whatever you've done, okay? So, you know, when I model, I always clean when I go, right? Next point is going to be checked for flipped normals. Now we talked about it already, right? Have this thing turn on all the time, right? Because the moment something, you know, something funny happens, and normals can get flipped, you know, for no apparent reason, just when you're working and you keep stuck in a lot of booleans here and there, and eventually, you know, you may start seeing some kind of red faces, you know what I mean? So when you see stuff like this, it's either overlapping or faces are flipped. You know, you could end up with flipped faces. So I'm going to go Alt-N and flip, you see, and that's going to be a flipped face, right? So watch what happens here when the face is flipped. You see this bevel? It's just kind of curving inwards and collapsing, because what's happening is that Blender is trying to wrap this bevel, you know, from the other side. So watch, if I'm going to flip this face here, right? Flip it. So watch what happens, right? I'm gonna push this bevel harder. You see that? It curves the other way because the face is flipped. Makes sense? So when you do this, right, you want to see that it's happening. If I have this turned off, sometimes it's hard to see, okay? You may miss it. I mean, in this case, it's gonna be, you know, evident, but if it's kind of delicate like this, right, you can't see that, you see, but this is flipped. Look, if I turn it back on, you know, it's gonna be a fucking disaster right here. You see that? It's flipped. So you have a problem, and you got overlapping bevels too. So there's a lot of issues, right? So you want to fix that. You want to select everything in edit mode, Alt-N, and recalculate outside, and you're good to go. And then you want to zoom in and see if your bevels are not overshooting. You know, make the bevel smaller, or simply, you know, move the cutter deeper, right? So you could just, you know, do either or, right? And then you can increase the bevel. Do you see what I mean? So when you have this thing on, you can always see what the fuck is going on with your mesh, right? Now, avoid overlapping bevels. We already mentioned this. You know, when two bevels, you know, when the Boolean bevel, right, is too large, you're gonna have this issue as well. So be careful with this one. Now, next one. When you want to run subd on your mesh that has booleans on it, it's possible, but you really need to know what the hell you're doing, okay? You cannot just grab this mesh and run subd because it's gonna collapse, right? So, you know, you would need to apply certain booleans, or you would need to change order of modifiers, but by default it will not work because these edges here in corner is gonna collapse, right? Because what's happening right now, okay, let me explain. Because you see these verts here are not connected to anything, and this entire face is gonna collapse and get subdivided, and you're gonna get these lines, shortcut lines, pulling this face inside, right? Which is why you're getting this nonsense. So the moment I connect these, right, to the corners, even two of them, okay, watch what happens. It's gonna be much better. Do you see what I mean? It's already fixed, almost, right? So all you need to do is you need to understand what subdivision is doing, right? So you could, you know, get away with a dirty subdivision like this. It's not perfect because it's gonna be a lot of pulling. You see, like for example, if you look here, this edge is being pulled, right? Because this face is simply too large. These n-gons here are too large, and even though they're on a flat surface, they will be, you know, they will be collapsing, because when I apply the subdivision, you'll see what happens, right? It's uneven distribution of quads. The size is different. It's all a mess, right? So these corners here, they're gonna be collapsing and kind of stretching, and that's why you're gonna have distortions in the mesh, okay? So when you're gonna be running subdivision on Boolean mesh, you can, but you need to know how to clean it and how to prepare it and how to prepare structures and bevels and support edges to hold the subdivision in a way that's gonna look clean, okay? Makes sense? Cool. Now, if you want to learn how to do this, we have a fantastic course for it as well, but make sure that you're gonna actually understand add-on workflow. So get the ultimate guide to Hardops and Boxcutter 2.0 first, because our subd course, which is what I'm talking about, actually utilizes all the add-ons, right? It's a really fast and furious workflow, made really efficient. So the point of this course is to teach you how to work with add-ons like Hardops, Boxcutter, Mesh Machine, you know, all these add-ons, and a lot of add-ons specifically made for subd to make subd really quick, okay? Because subd is slow and subd is annoying. So the point of this course is to make it really efficient. So if you know Blender and if you know add-on workflow, but you want to learn subd, then grab the course. Is fucking amazing, okay? The link is also in the video description. All right, next one. Use add-ons, right? Because reasons. I mean, I think I showed you enough reasons to use them. But, you know, adding scale, bevels, which is really easy, all that stuff, you know, done automatically behind the scenes, which normally would take ages because you would need to, you know, create a cube, right? And then you would need to go here and generate the bevel, right? And then you would need to go here and change miter to arc, so the corner is gonna be, you know, nice and round, and then increase this one, then add shade auto smooth, then you're gonna have to adjust the size of the damn thing, you know, change the number of segments, then you need to grab another cube, right? It's just so much fucking work. It's almost like full-time, do you know what I mean? So you grab that, then you have to add another modifier, go to generate, go to Boolean, and you know, it's a fucking nightmare, right? But when you're using these add-ons, it's just so quick, right? Because all you need to do is simply, you know, add a cube, right? Cut it, right? Learn a bevel, weight the normals, and you're fucking done. Do you know what I mean? So it's just 3 seconds, right? Instead of 75. But anyway, use add-ons, and you know, there are a lot of add-ons that can help you with this workflow, and all the add-ons are in a video description, like Hardops and Boxcutter and Machine Tools, Mesh Machine, you know, our add-on Material Works as well, which by the way can help you adding bevels on tricky surfaces when you want to run just renders and you can't be bothered cleaning the mesh. You know, you can just use procedural bevels, and we have them built into the add-on as well, so you know, check it out. Another really important thing is gonna be using weighted normal modifier. Okay, so when you have a cube or whatever and you run a bevel on it, and the moment you cut it, right, you see we're gonna get this problem with shading, right? Why? Because of something called normals. And if you really want to go deep into normals, watch Josh's video. I'm going to show you on the screen which one. Josh is the other half of Blender Bros. And he explained it very well. He's a mathematician, so he knows how to explain it very well. But normals basically determine shading of faces, right? And the reason why these faces are kind of bent and, you know, distorted is because Blender is trying to flex them, but it's also trying to average the shading between the beveled areas and the flat areas. So you need to help Blender with two modifiers. One of them is smooth by angle, which is something you need to add in order to make your mesh appear smooth. And this modifier has been added automatically by Hardups and Box Cutter, which is not going to happen if you're not using these add-ons. You're going to have to, you know, generate the bevel, right? And then you're going to have to change the mesh from flat to smooth and add shade auto smooth modifier to make it smooth. But you see, even if you do that, you still got this kind of a bending here in the bottom. See that face is not flat, it's kind of shaded on the bottom. Why? Because we're missing this weighted normal modifier. And another problem with Blender is that vanilla Blender pins this fucking thing here, and you need to unpin it in order to move weighted normal below it, because that's the correct, order of modifiers. If I'm going to, you know, add a weighted normal modifier here to flex it, right? So add the weighted normals and turn this keep sharp, which you should. I can't move it below because this fucking thing is pinned. So you need to do that. So I don't know why they did that, but they did. So the good thing about Hardups and Box Cutter again is that there is no pinning. Okay, this is added by, you see this exclamation mark? These indicate that this modifier was added by Hardups and Box Cutter, which is why it's not pinned. Because I don't know which fucking moron decided to pin that shit. It's just retarded. You don't want to pin that for hard surface. You want this modifier, weighted normals, at the bottom at all times, right? That's the correct stack of modifiers. Don't fucking touch it. Don't fucking apply them. These two, right? Don't touch them, okay? And this is going to ensure that your shading gonna be perfect. So you need it on the bottom, and you need to turn that thing on, okay? Which is again why we're using add-ons, because that thing is happening automatically when you're gonna go to Q menu and alt click on Ever Scroll, okay? Now, last thing, right? Really important, which is also something that vanilla Blender doesn't do. I don't know fucking why, don't ask me. When you add a bevel, right? And you are going to, you know, do all these steps that you need to do, and, you know, I'm just going to do it manually. Add you know, weighted normals with Hardups. You still need to do one more thing in Bevel Vanilla, okay? Which, by the way, is done automatically through Hardups and Box Cutter. So what you need to do is you need to go here and change this miter from sharp to arc. Why? Watch. If I'm going to run a Boolean here, you see these corners, okay? That's the problem, okay? That's the problem. So watch what happens when I'm going to flip it, right? See what I mean? Don't ask me why this is set like this, but it is since forever, and they never changed it. So they, you know, playing with all kinds of bullshit instead of fixing the fucking basics. But there you go. So again, you know, that's why we have add-ons, that's why we use them, and that's why we love them. But you need to remember all these things and pay attention to all these things. Have them in mind, yeah, bear them in mind whenever you're working with booleans. So anyway, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching. And like I said, check out our ultimate guide to Hardups and Box Cutter course 2.0, which is the best and the most complete source of knowledge on these two add-ons. It's a 22 fucking hours course. It's insane. It covers all the freaking tools, all the menus, all this nonsense that no one is really talking about, and no one knows how to, you know, how to understand all that. And it, of course, explains all these plus more advanced menus, and also there's a massive modeling section, a lot of bonuses. You're gonna love it, so check it out. That's it for the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.